Small but mighty. We can kick it off, I think. We'll call the meeting of the East Bay Charter Township Planning Commission to order. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. All right, can we start with a roll call, please?
Ferguson.
Here.
Richardson.
Here.
Leonard.
Here.
Wassam.
Present.
And Walters.
Present.
And it's noted that Gonzalez and Edley are absent and excused.
Thank you. All right, before us we have the agenda. Any issues with the agenda? Or, excuse me, we'll move on to conflict of interest on the agenda. Anything before us that anyone needs to proclaim?
With regards to the zoning amendment 1-24 car wash, this was precipitated by the True North development on the corner, which I'm conflicted out of, but I don't believe that this line item is directly related to that. So if you feel that I am in conflict, I'm more than happy to leave, but I don't feel that I'm in conflict.
I don't think so.
No, I don't either. I think you're good. Thank you, though. Appreciate it. Anybody else? Okay, we'll move into consideration and approval of the agenda.
Make a motion to approve the agenda for Tuesday, February 6th of the East Bay Charter Township Planning Commission.
Support.
All right, we have a motion by Carl and seconded by Mindy for approval of the agenda as printed. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. On to the meeting minutes from January 3rd, 3034.
Oops. It's a new date. I'm trying to get used to writing it.
If no alterations, look for any type of motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the meeting minutes from the January 3rd, 2024 regular meeting.
I'll support that, but don't we need to do the two site plan review minutes, or can't we do it on the same motion?
You can do it all in one motion. We're just combining them all into one document and posting them that way.
So on the website, you click on one, they all pop up.
They
Got it.
pop up in the packet too.
Okay. You comfortable with that, Mindy?
Sure.
Okay. So motion by Steve, seconded by Mindy for approval of the January 3rd meeting minutes. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries. Item number 6 is public comment. Anyone like to make public comment? You'll have opportunity to come to the mic for about 3 minutes, and then we'll get a hold of you and let you know when your time is up. Going once, going twice. Okay. We'll close the public comment. Come back to correspondence. Claire, you want to walk us through? We got a new element on our desk.
Yeah, you've got, in your packet, you've got correspondence from Grand Traverse County noting that they've got a recently adopted Parks and Recreation Plan available to review online, and then also received correspondence from the Watershed Center this afternoon related to the Hampton Manor development. I can get into more, we can go into more detail on that once we get to that agenda item.
Sounds good. Any questions for Claire? Okay. Into reports. Township Board, Mindy.
We had 2 meetings last month. The first one was on January 8th, and that was a quarterly reports meeting. Most of the agenda items were our board's stuff, so that included, of course, I didn't write down what it included. Oh, yeah, I did. Overnight medical facilities, the MDR density, the Michigan Healthy Climate Corps grant we received, as well as the TART 3 Mile grant application. Also, the biggest discussion point on the agenda was the 5-year plan from the Parks Commission. Actually, the Township Board sent it back to the Parks Commission for them to relook at it. And then we had another special board meeting, and at that meeting, we approved the Parks Commission 5-year plan because we had to get it done by February 1st because that's when a lot of grant applications were due, as well as we talked about water and sewer rate structure and potentially changing how the rates are figured out across the township. I would also like to tell everybody that I am on the election committee, and we had a meeting yesterday, and we have a meeting tomorrow, and tomorrow is the public accuracy test to make sure that the tabulators are working properly for the primary. If anybody wants to come and see how those work on a close-up and personal level, 6 PM tomorrow in this room is the public accuracy test. And I don't know if I can say this now or if I have to wait for public comment, but if you are interested in working the elections, whether it's the primary or the presidential election coming up in November, please see the township clerk and see if they can get you signed up to assist.
Thank you. Questions for Mindy? Okay. Do we have anything out of ZBA, Claire?
There was nothing last month.
Okay, that makes that easy.
But an uneventful few months.
And back to you for any planning and zoning updates.
Yes, so just one. The zoning ordinance draft is going to be available very soon. So the zoning ordinance subcommittee reviewed a draft at their meeting last Wednesday. There was some changes that are going to be made, so the consultant team is in the process of making those changes. As soon as we have the updated draft, we will send it out to the planning commission for you to start reviewing. And we've got special work sessions scheduled for March 19th, April 16th, and May 21st. So I'll send an email out with those dates, but those are it's the third Tuesday of the months for March, April, and May.
So the February 20th that's on the agenda is
We took that
gone.
off, yep, and that is because just weren't quite ready, and also there's Parks Commission that night, so. I will plan to, at the first meeting, we're breaking it up into 3 chunks, and so we will let you know exactly, I'm waiting for the consultant team to let us know how they want to chunk that up. But we will plan to review the high-level policy discussions that the zoning ordinance subcommittee had, so you can kind of help you digest kind of what those changes are, because it's difficult to look at a draft and see,
Sure.
kind of compare from the previous version to the current draft. The consultant team, I believe, is going to summarize all the changes that they're making, but I will also kind of plan to summarize some high-level content changes. and
Gotcha.
Summarize kind of what the zoning ordinance subcommittee has looked at over the last year plus. So that's my only update.
Have you, I know that it's in draft, but have you been looking at our current zoning ordinance versus what it would be for the projects that are coming in to make sure that it works, if you will?
You know, we have, and we've definitely been catching some little things with that, so, yeah. And we probably will continue to catch little things as we roll it out. So don't be surprised if we need to make, some amendments at the beginning, but, yeah.
Yeah, working through it is a whole lot different than talking through it.
Yep, no, it's a really good point. I'm just looking at design standards and dimensional requirements and stuff like that.
And thank you to Paul and Carl for all of their due diligence in that process. Can't wait.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you for that. I guess up under agenda item number 9, we have new business under site plan review 2-22, special land use 2-22, Beach House. This is an extension request, and Claire, I'll kick it over to you to kind of set the table for us.
Okay, yeah, so we've got Justin Mortier is here this evening, the applicant. This was approved May 3rd of 2022, and so it's set to expire. The site plan approval is good for 2 years, so it's set to expire May 3rd of 2024. So the based on our ordinance, an applicant is to apply 60 days in advance for up to a one-year extension. So the applicant is seeking an extension for 1 year, so that would extend the site plan to May 3rd of 2025. And this would be the deadline for obtaining a land use permit. So you'll see Justin's got correspondence just kind of on where he is with the financing and the process, getting all the agency approvals, but I'll let Justin come up and answer any questions and details of that.
Absolutely. Welcome, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Claire. My name's Justin Mortier. Address is 833 Vienna Way. First, I want to thank you for your volunteering your time for our community. As you know, we've experienced a lot of ebbs and flows, so to speak, over the last 18 months, especially with regards to construction costs and financing. Those specifically are the two issues that we've had in getting this deal to pencil. We did come back to the committee about a year ago with a different proposed plan that required far less infrastructure, more of a tiny home platform idea, and was met with significant resistance. So we've then pivoted our original plan, changed it, downsized some of the internal amenities. Instead of it being a 3 bedrooms, 2.5 baths, it's now a 3-bedroom, 2-bath. So just trying to find ways to save some dollars, but to still get the essence of the project done the way that we want to get it done. So we've spent about 6 months working through some different financing, different architectural drawings on the inside. From the exterior, which you might probably be most concerned with, we're talking about a couple of feet here and there from the original footprint, with actually being a little smaller to try and save some costs. But our goal is to now find some additional ways to find some grants for this program. There's some new missing middle dollars available through the, not through the MEDC, but through an...
Anishta?
Thank you, thank you. A lot of acronyms.
Yep.
So there, I believe that there is a path forward, so we are asking for an extension at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions while the applicant's up? Okay. Well, thank you for your time. We might come back to you. Yeah, I've heard that sentiment all over the construction world, with interest rates and just life at the moment, especially finding contractors to do the work. Yeah. Anybody have any questions or concerns or anything else we need to iron out? It sounds like it's the same proposal as what we've previously seen.
How big a change necessitates them coming back?
A 10% change. So if the building footprint was to move more than 10%, or if it was to, generally it's an enlargement of more than 10%. So I would say most likely this wouldn't come back based on the changes that Justin described. But if it was, more than 10% change to any of the parking, retention, those types of things, it would come back to Planning Commission. And I will say, I apologize I didn't put a sample motion in here, but I would recommend for the motion, make sure you just note that the 4 conditions that are in that,
Original approval.
on the 4 conditions that are on the cover page, that it says the Planning Commission shall extend a site plan for an additional 1-year period if the evidence shows the following. And those are the 4 conditions that should be met. So just note that in your motion, would be my recommendation.
Did everybody find that, where those conditions are?
Yeah, it's on page 10 of the packet.
Yep.
I'll make a motion to extend site plan review 2-22, special land use 2-22, based on the 4 Planning Commission conditions for which we can extend that approval, as indicated on page 10 of our packet, 1 through 4.
Second.
Support.
Okay, so we have a motion by Mindy, seconded by Steve, to approve the one-year extension request based upon the 4 conditions attached within our agenda packet and moving this on for staff's review if needed in the future. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Okay. Item B is site plan review 16-23 Hampton Manor TC updates and some discussion. And Claire, if you kind of want to talk us through because we've seen this one before, kind of where we're at today and maybe some alterations that have taken place.
Yeah, I think this is the third. I think they came for a sketch plan review, and then there was a public hearing in January. So as you'll recall, this is an 84-unit assisted living facility. At the January meeting, there was still some outstanding items related to the photometric plan. We were still looking for some more landscaping details, and most importantly, the driveway location was still up in the air. The applicant has since provided those details and has followed up with the Grand Traverse County Road Commission and Eagle review. Any approval tonight, and approval is recommended, it would be contingent on securing final permits and approvals from Eagle and Grand Traverse County Road Commission prior to issuing any land use permit. You'll see that there is a letter from the Watershed Center today concerning wetland impacts that came in late this afternoon. I do believe that the applicant has worked to minimize the wetlands, and applicant is here today to kind of talk through that in more detail. But the applicant has moved the driveway as far over west as Grand Traverse County Road Commission is willing to allow that driveway to move. They've also had communications with Olson's next door, as well as with TCAPS, looking to see if they can do a different access off of those adjacent properties. Neither of those, other access have come to fruition. So I would note that the wetlands on the site, obviously, any impact to wetlands is not desirable, but the wetlands are already significantly fragmented from Hammond Road going through them. The Road Commission is next year going to be widening Hammond Road, so further impacting those wetlands. And so I guess from my perspective, the applicant is proposing to fill a maximum of 0.06 acres of already fragmented wetlands while preserving the majority of the wetland on that site. The township safe routes to school with our trail that's going through that wetland, that's going to be all boardwalk. So we will not be filling any wetlands on that site as a part of the trail construction. So I guess, the applicant is here and can speak in more detail on the wetland impacts. In terms of conditions, one thing I would add as a recommended condition to the staff report that's not on there is that the approval shall include the safe routes to school pathway. I think it was not included on the final, it was on the previous site plan, but not on the site plan, or not on all versions of the site plan. I can see it actually on some of the pages. The landscaping performance guarantee, you'll see, is added to the conditions. The estimate is $117,275, so we can add that, and then also the condition of this reciprocal access easement from Olson's for both vehicular and pedestrian traffic. I think that will be really nice for residents to get over to Olson's by foot and, accessing Beta as well as the grocery store and other amenities there.
Before we bring the applicant up, can we I just want to ask a question of you. From what we had looked at prior to building, parking, all that's basically identical.
It's very similar. There was some, and I'll let Chris speak to it. I think that based on the wetland delineation, they have moved there's been some minor movement to the buildings, but pretty similar.
Got it. Thank you.
What saw recently.
Any questions for Claire? And the applicant's here. Want to come up to the podium?
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Chris Bott with Gosling Zubek, and then Soheeb from...
Good evening, Zohaib Syed from Senior Housing.
So again, this is the site application for the Hampton Manor of Traverse City, address 1150 Hammond Road. Some of the, I went ahead and brought.
Chris, could you turn that a little bit, just a tiny bit? No, that thing, just, thanks.
So some of the changes that we made from the previous meeting, we had kind of double stack parking, kind of mirrored to the north and to the south. To save these trees along here, we went ahead and moved this parking and kind of split it up on the west side of this aisle. We were also, I believe so we had 284 feet, so this is where, so I went in, this is the submittal that I turned out a couple weeks ago. So we were 284 feet from Olson's. The road commission wanted us to move it 320 feet, so that moved it over a little bit more into the wetlands. So you can see it's about 37 more feet into that wetland area. Trying to think what else. So I did get some comments, which I let Claire know today, since she forwarded me the email from the Watershed Association that Eagle is recommended. They've already reviewed it. They gave me some preliminary comments. They would like us to move the sidewalk and then this green belt that we have to the west side, which will decrease probably about 1/100 of an acre. I mean, it's not significant, but they wanted to see, the least amount of impact of the wetlands. So we've already started those changes to the sidewalk. It's not reflected in the set that I sent out last week, but I think it's theirs. Again, we've got approval from Brad Olson as far as the location of the connector. We do have an email from the TCAPs approving the grading easement that will remain on their property. I think that's about the length of the changes. By moving, there's one pine tree that when we did our site visit, a couple of the commissioners wanted to know if we could save it by moving the driveway over. We were able to get far enough away to be able to save that pine tree.
If you move the sidewalk over there, are we going to lose that tree?
I think we can make it work to get around it.
Any other questions for the applicant while they're up?
I have another one, Dan.
Yes, go ahead, Mindy.
Is that a retaining wall between the,
Yes, this is a retaining wall right here.
and how far is it off the wetland?
I think we left about 3 feet. I did also ask Eagle when we did our pre-application meeting, as far as if that would be an issue, they don't have any wetland setbacks, so any work that's outside of it, as long as we're not obviously letting soil erosion get into it, they don't have an issue. And so they didn't have an issue with the retention pond either. I know that was a concern that a couple commissioners had.
And is the surface water drainage from the parking lots all go
All
underground to the retention pond?
Yep, there's storm sewer that carries everything here, and then the entrance gets picked up with storm sewer here and then placed in this retention pond.
Questions?
I have a quick question. So you did read the email from Watershed. So can you speak to the use of clear span or open pile construction for a portion of the driveway related to the wetlands area?
Per my conversation with Claire, I thought it would be pretty cost prohibitive as far as it would be basically providing a bridge
Okay.
through that area. So,
Okay.
to build a bridge and then have it butt up against the new improvements, I think would be difficult and expensive to do.
Yeah, just having a look at it, I mean, it doesn't look like there was too much left for us to debate other than, and you've already discussed the safe routes to school improvements being illustrated on there.
And
So
they are on the site plan.
They're on the most latest. So,
I had to make a set for the township and a set for Eagle, because they didn't want to see the safe routes to school on there because they didn't want to approve it. You know, they wanted that, the safe route schools to be a separate.
got it. Got
So
it.
some of the sheets that got turned off on, I think, the set that I gave Claire, so.
Okay. Got it. Okay. Well, again, this is a site plan review. If there's no other questions or of Claire or the applicant, thank you for your time. We appreciate it.
I got a quick one. Claire?
Yeah.
The widening of Hammonds, how much is that? Do you know, or what the conceptual is?
You know, I know that they are widening basically to the Grand Traverse Academy entrance, and then it will kind of go back to where the current width. So I think it's one additional lane, but I just don't know the exact details of.
So would their drive be reworked anyway, at least the entrance, or I guess deceleration, acceleration?
You know,
portion
I
of it?
know that the road commission is working with them, so I think whatever is approved, I guess, Chris, you can probably
Yeah,
speak to
so
that.
I did talk to Steve Barry and Wayne, and they let me know that the curb is going to be 30 feet off the existing center line. So it's basically going to be there'll be a left turn lane and then 2 through lanes heading east. So we did put our curb so it was 30 foot off center line.
So your curb cut won't be affected?
Right.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Well, I guess I'll start. I think they've made very reasonable movements to get as minimal as possible impact to the wetland. And I personally agree with Claire. We've got Hammond Road basically bisecting that northern corner of the wetland. And I think this is a good project, and I'm supportive of it.
I agree with that. And they've also made steps as far as preserving some trees on the east side, as well as adding some for their landscaping. And then I know there was some remarks about the pine trees on the south property line, but they've also added a bunch of landscaping into that cut, into that, I guess, TCAP's property, but they're making efforts.
Would anyone entertain a motion?
Would we have to add include safe routes to school in one of the conditions, or is that
You know,
already?
I think it's on the site plan.
It's on the site plan? And then would we add does the latest site plan also have the moving of the sidewalk and some of that grading or green belt to the west side of the drive?
It does not have the change in the sidewalk location. That could be added as a condition.
I think this is a good project. I think it's on the wrong piece of property. If this piece of property was just 30 feet further to the south, I think it would be an excellent project. I think we're too close to the wetland, being 3 feet away with a retaining wall. And I think that those trees on the south side are needing to be preserved, and to be putting landscape on somebody else's property to make your project work. I just feel that that's a stretch.
It's good consideration. And within our findings of fact, I mean, that's something that we can absolutely note. I don't know, because they are technically in compliance with that section of it by providing that landscaping to the south, but I completely feel your point. from our standpoint, I mean, I understand it kind of is what it is, because that's basically a thoroughfare lane to connect for safety purposes, I presume, at least on that south edge. And to rework it, I'm not sure where else it could go.
It's just,
Tight.
doesn't quite fit. It's really, really close, but I don't think it fits. I think for the safety of the students, those trees are really important. I think that, and yes, we plant a lot of trees, but they're not going to be like those trees for a very long time. And we are really, really close to that wetland with a retaining wall, and I'm concerned how close it is. I'm not so concerned about, where the driveway is and that we're cutting off a little bit of the wetland there. I think it's more of the, we've got a retaining wall, we've got the highest potential for stuff to get in the wetland with the roadway right next to it. I really like those trees on that south side. I really do like this project, though. I just think it doesn't quite fit on that piece of property.
Mindy, I would have to agree with you. It's unfortunate that there wasn't some more space. And I understand there's not the opportunity to put a bridge in there. And I completely understand the cost, being prohibitive to the entire project. I totally get that. But Mitchell Creek is already, in trouble as it stands today. I know the roadway is going to be concerning, and I'm not sure exactly what all that will entail. But if we're adding then to the other side, like you said, Mindy, with the retaining wall, I love the project. I think it's needed. Speaking from someone whose mother just moved in with them, I understand the need for this type of housing and availability. I'm struggling.
I guess the point that I'm kind of hung up on, and Mindy, thank you for bringing that up, is just tied to that drive, meaning the necessity of it. I imagine, because we talked about it pretty extensively with that being part of the land balancing for the site, is pulling that from the south to the north, basically to get it ready for the construction efforts. The drive itself, and maybe, Chris, if you could just address this question, or is just tied to the necessity of the drive. I mean, is that something that, like, EMT, fire department is required based on the number of units there?
You mean for the size of the entrance? Or?
I'm talking to the circular nature of it, so the southern connector there.
Yeah, so the fire department didn't want us to have a circular, that way they could get all the way around the hole.
Okay. Because I'm looking at it like, is there a way to do a different turnaround that would still suffice with what they need? Because I imagine that's what it is. They don't
They also have
want
to get within, was it, a few hundred feet of each point of a building?
Correct.
So even if you cut it off at one corner, if they can't get to a certain point 400 feet away, they require a drive.
No matter
At least
what.
get close enough to that point, and then you have to have a turnaround big enough for their truck.
Right.
Right. Because the only other thing I can think of, just because of the location of the wetland, is if you narrowed up the drive to the north to slide it further north, but, because it's just,
So close, but I don't think it fits.
the only thing, well, the only bubble that I was looking at was that kind of drop-off area that's in the northern portion of it. I mean, it's more aesthetic than functional, I suppose. Yeah, yep. I mean, that's the only area you have to squeeze, really.
I know I brought it up in the last meeting as far as reducing the footprint of the building. You take off that southern last row of rooms, but now you're losing, geez, I don't know, half dozen or more rooms. And then costs, I still, seeing what you've worked around, I still favor this project. And they have taken steps with that landscaping to,
Replant?
yeah, replant and do some pretty good screening, in my opinion. As far as the wetland, they've taken steps, moved the driveway as far as they could, and then with the road construction coming through, I mean, it just further separates it from the rest of it, so.
Right. Yeah, personally, I think I'm in support of it based on the just dire need and the lack thereof throughout the region. I get that we're close to that school system. I wish there was a way to kind of thin that impact out or reduce it, but I don't know, I think it is what it is at this point. But I'm one person. Unless anybody else got any creative ideas.
If I may add to that, if it's trees, landscaping, we can always have an option to have some mature trees towards the end property line. So if it's a buffer, we can always have an option of having mature trees, so they kind of replace, similar to what we're removing from the site, if that helps.
And I was also going to suggest that, I think we've got a 5 to 6 foot bench along the south curb line. We could, since we're getting a grading easement anyway from TCAPS, we could always widen it to where we're basically, it changes the slope at the property line and move the trees down in that bench, right up against the slope.
Gotcha.
And we could move the retaining wall a few feet to the south, maybe split the difference.
Sure. And that's, that would be done more administrative after the fact, though, with Claire.
Would we add a condition
Yeah.
to rework it?
Yeah, I would say that would be, I would recommend adding condition, yeah, for both the regrading. When you say mature trees, what would be that size, or what size have you done in the past?
Larger trees installed, instead of like a small.
Yeah.
I can't
6
read
foot, you
this
said?
without my glasses.
Okay.
I think there's 6-foot evergreens on the plan right now along the south border, so what would we, you're not going to replace the 30-foot ones that are now or something?
Yeah, I know 6 foot is pretty standard in ordinance requirements, but,
We can definitely see if we can get larger trees in that
okay.
installed.
So maybe that would be that would be something that I would work with them administratively.
That's gonna change your bond too, though.
What's the pleasure?
I'm comfortable with it as is, so.
I kind of am too. I mean, you've already got the TCAPS Drive that's just south of there, buses and cars going through, so you're adding you're screening beyond that between both buildings.
Right.
I'm
We
okay
didn't
with it.
receive any comments from TCAPS beyond just their concern with the connection, because I was hoping that we could cross their access drive to
Yeah.
connect to the other parcel, so they
Sure.
were not at all interested in that. But beyond that, there was no concerns from kind of a safety standpoint for their school operations. We didn't hear anything from them about that.
Gotcha.
I'll make a motion to approve site plan review 16-23, the Hampton Manor, with the recommendations on the memo from Claire Carner dated July 30th, 2024, with 2 additional conditions. One being move the retaining wall. Oh, you took the plan down on me. move the retaining wall south as far as possible in accordance with Claire's direction, and adding, I like 6 more mature trees on the south, but on the property.
I'll second that.
Okay. Thank you for that. So we have a motion on the table for approval of site plan review 16-23 with a total of 7 conditions then. Did you mention the location of the sidewalk to be amended as well?
I'm sorry, I did not, but I would like to add that as a condition as well, as the Eagle recommended removal of, or relocation of the sidewalk on the east side of the drive entrance to the west side of the drive entrance.
Okay. Okay, we've got good note-taking going on. Do you accept her amended motion? All right. So we have a motion on the floor. Thank you for the amended alterations. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. Thank you for working with us. We appreciate it. Okay, next on the table is item number C, the zoning amendment 1-24, the car wash. This is a public hearing, discussion and possible action. I will kick it over to Claire to kick us off on this.
Okay, so as you'll recall, in January, there was public hearing and recommended and approval by the Planning Commission of the True North gas station and car wash. One issue was the decibel level of the car wash. So I went back to all of my notes from the zoning ordinance subcommittee, and Brian Graham, our attorney, had actually already drafted different language for the car wash provision. He did not like the decibel. He does not want any decibels in our zoning ordinance. He wants us to use the reasonable person standard. So I was going to draft some language for this, but then realized that we already had that language drafted. So what you have in front of you with the zoning text amendment came from our legal counsel as a part of the zoning ordinance rewrite. Brian feels that oftentimes there's ambiguity of field measurements, and there's also challenges to enforce. So he highly recommends the reasonable person standard. If you recall that in this case, the ambient noise level from the road exceeded the car wash decibels, and that maximum level was 40. So that would be something administratively, we would be looking for that documentation of what's the ambient noise of the road in comparison to the car wash, and that would be based on the ordinance, could be approved for this car wash. So that's what I would recommend moving forward. And so this is a public hearing to make that ordinance amendment. And also just wanted to mention, I believe, just with the timeline that True North is looking at for moving forward, they would love to have this go to the township board next Monday, if you're comfortable with that, but it wouldn't be final approved minutes. It would be only with the draft minutes. So I'd be looking for direction for you on kind of timing for what you'd like to do with that.
Got it. I feel for the zoning administrator to have to go out and actually administer this, I think it would be a little bit of a waste of time in this situation, but I'm thinking of the other car washes that we have here, and there aren't too many, honestly, but most of them are adjacent to very busy public thoroughfares, so probably going to heed the same result.
Bill is a reasonable person.
Most of the time.
Most of the time. Seems pretty straightforward to me, but with that being said, this is a public hearing, so we'll open the public hearing at 7:16. If anyone wants to comment? Going once, going twice? Okay. We'll bring it back to the planning commission. Any questions or comments? And this have to go to the township board for final approval, just FYI. So we're recommending.
I make a motion to recommend zoning amendment 1-24 car wash to the township board.
Second?
Thank you. We have a motion from Mindy, seconded by Carl, for recommendation of approval for zoning amendment 1-24, the car wash amendments. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries. As far as timing, should we have put that in the motion, or would you just like kind of direction?
I'm just looking for direction, if you're comfortable sending it on with draft minutes.
I think we're all in agreement there.
Move forward.
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay, next up is a citizen planner presentation from our very own Mr. Sam. How are you this evening?
How are you guys?
Doing great.
So Sam, he completed the citizen planner course with Rhonda and Paul and anyone else from Planning Commission? Okay, along with a number of citizens from East Bay Township that participated, as well as other communities. But part of the process for getting master citizen planner certified is giving a public presentation. So Sam's going to be giving a presentation about the master planning effort, which I think is timely, because how many planning commissioners went through our most recent master plan? The three of you, right? Or
came in
Carl, did
just
you
at the
come?
tail end, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So I mean,
just
we have a
we were reviewing
relatively
it.
new planning commission. We have to do this every 5 years, so I think this will be helpful context for our next master plan, which is going to come sooner than we
Later.
want. And then also kind of setting the stage for our beach district visioning, which we're going to be kicking off this spring.
Will others be presenting to us publicly on their master citizen
I
planner
have not had
status?
any inquiries, but
Ah.
always welcome,
I
presentations.
don't have time for another class right now.
As far as
It
I
would
know,
be
this is the only one.
interesting.
Okay, got it.
Be very interesting.
Oh, okay. Let me just type it in.
You're not going to announce it on TV?
I would, but I don't know.
No before.
That would be against our IT.
A little bit. Yes, you would be against your training.
All right, so yeah, Claire did a pretty good job of kind of explaining where we're at. So this is part of kind of that process. I took the test, and then we have to do kind of a presentation to one of the boards or commissions or bodies that represent our township. So I thought, since we're starting this visioning process with US 31, it'd be nice to kind of do a little bit of a recap on our process with the master plan, and then look at kind of how that visioning process can play out, and kind of talk about at the end where we're headed and what we're going to be moving forward with. So, oops. Still learning how to use Claire's computer. So what is a master plan? So it's kind of a blueprint and a community vision statement. So it's working through kind of public health, safety, general wellness for the residents, and looking at kind of our assets, our services, the structures, our infrastructure, kind of what we offer as a township, taking a good look at where we're at, creating an action plan with specific strategies and tools to get to where we'd like to be, and then coordinating tools for making land use decisions. So how do we, what should be included in your master plan should be, land use infrastructural decisions that would affect the next 20 or more years. You'd have maps, plats, charts, identifying kind of the data that you've collected during the process, descriptive explanations of what you're talking about and kind of the concepts that are going into the master plan. Typically some pictorial descriptions, because a picture is worth 1,000 words, which is really helpful for people to understand kind of what you're talking about as in a physical realm. The Planning Commission's recommendations, again, data, input from the community is how you get a lot of this data. And then an official statement of goals, objectives, and policies as you move forward. So these should look familiar to you guys. These are some of your maps. So we have our future land use map, our zoning map, and then also we have like the well protection map. Some of the other maps that are in the master plan are data-driven, talking about wetland delineation, things like that that can help influence your decision-making process when looking at sensitive sites and things like that. And so for our specific community input and visioning that we did with our township, the Planning Commission itself took a really great leadership role and facilitated an open and inclusive process. We had 5 community group focus sessions We did a community survey, and we also did open house style engagement opportunities, all during a pandemic, which is pretty awesome that you guys were able to get that done. And then that had led us to creating kind of the objectives and goals and policies within that document. You'll see on the right side is a snippet of just an example of some of those that are listed in our master plan. And on the left side is a master plan status dashboard that we've created. So that helps kind of keep a running live tally of how we're doing and monitoring our process going forward based on those goals and objectives identified in the master plan. So this is our vision statement, and it goes into things like wanting to protect our natural features, wanting a diversity of housing opportunities, wanting to improve our infrastructure and make sure that that is equitable for people and, create a growing workforce in East Bay Township, things like that. This kind of is a synopsis of the findings of the master plan, kind of showing where we're headed in a concise way. This then leads into the process of visioning. So what we're talking about kind of with US 31 is a lot of what I'm about to kind of cover. So this helps develop a consensus about what the community wants to see. It captures the image that they're hoping to become as a community and maps how the community will look into the future. It also helps to figure out how we're going to achieve all of this stuff, how these goals will be achievable. Considering health, transportation, natural resources, infrastructure, economy, housing, kind of all in that when thinking about these things. And it also can help inspire community members to work to accomplish these goals eventually as well. Where do we start? Well, we start by establishing conditions. What's the current conditions? Where are we at? Where we're starting from? And we did a lot of that work with the master plan. We have a lot of data from that that's really awesome that we can look towards. And then you go from those data points and start creating a plan and a vision. We also have Leah that's going to be doing a lot of GIS resiliency mapping that'll add more data when we do the US 31 corridor, the Beach District. So that will add to the data we've kind of already accumulated. So visioning development, it's creating the roadmap for how the community is going to get to the future. It's also creating consensus and basing things on priority for the plan. And it's helping preserve some community characteristics as well, identifying kind of what we'd like to keep as we move forward. It's based on public engagement events, visioning sessions, or even design charrettes. So a design charrette is usually a pretty intensive multi-day design experience where they welcome the community to come in, do input, the designers take that input, they implement it into design work that they perform and do really quickly with a quick turnaround, and then represent that and get feedback. And it's kind of a feedback loop system of designing out kind of a community vision. It can be really helpful and impactful and do a lot of work very quickly, which kind of goes into a really powerful tool. So pictorial visioning statements are really helpful. I have an architectural background, and so what I have found in that is that like a sketchier view or a sketchier like style of pictorial representation can be really powerful because it still leads to be a little bit of the play with the imagination. It's not a hard line. It's more of like, this is what it could be. And it also allows people to point at it and say, oh, I really like this piece of this building, but I'm not so thrilled with this. And you can start to understand components of design that they don't like or that they do like. So these can create a visual representation of the community visioning statement, and a picture, again, is worth 1,000 words. So, I mean, they can be really powerful. Part of our work with US 31 is going to include a really heavy graphic representational component, trying to get this kind of sketchier view and look at what the future may look like. They're also easily comparable to one another. It's easy to compare images and say, again, I like that, I don't like that, and find out reasonings kind of why. Another really important thing is to do a SWOT analysis. So looking at our strengths, our weaknesses, our opportunities, and our threats. And so this can be done also in like a sub-area of a master plan, kind of like the Beach District has been identified as kind of an area for economic opportunity. So some of our strengths are on natural features. So we've got the Grand Traverse Bay, we've got the Boardman River, we've got the Forest Lakes District, we've got creeks, Mitchell and Baker. We've got wetlands, woodlands, farmland, and US 31 corridor, or, sorry, the pines along US 31 corridor. As you'll notice, a lot of these assets do happen to fall along the beach district. So it does happen to be one of our strengths as an area. We also have a series, tons of opportunities for parks and recreation. As a municipality, we offer sewer and water throughout our township in strategic places. We have an emergency services department. We offer multiple educational opportunities at various schools in the area. We have our township hall that we're all in right now. And then we also have the East Bay Township Library over here, Extension, that's a great resource to our township. We have a lot of different transportation options with Beta, the airport. We also have economic drivers like the Beach District and East Bay Corners. And then some areas for improvement. We could improve our watershed protections and our native planting standards. We're looking at our natural features and tree protection. We're looking at better pedestrian access to Grand Traverse Bay, expanding transportation opportunities, potentially looking at septic improvements, and addressing the high demand for housing. So there's some opportunities we still have, or areas for improvement, and those kind of lead into what our opportunities are. We could have, great connections with Grand Traverse Bay, really beefing up our park systems with improvements possibly coming with like Holiday Woodlands and the Arbutus Lake number 5 that's getting constructed right now. We have an opportunity to become really resilient and sustainable with our water sources, since a lot of our water comes from groundwater sources in our township. And making a more resilient climate infrastructure here along the water, really addressing the changes that are going to happen in the lake over the next decades, and creating some farmland protection to try and make sure that we preserve farmland in our township. The other opportunities are, we're expanding broadband, we're looking at multimodal transportation routes, we're kind of really holistically looking at the township and seeing where our opportunities are. Again, Beach District is another huge opportunity that was identified, as well as East Bay Corners, which is right over here. Some of the threats that we do have are that we have climate change that's kind of really affecting this area quite drastically. We've seen some pretty decent storms and high water levels over the last few years. We also have, the potential threat of overdevelopment near wetland areas and natural features. We have limited housing availability right now, which threatens businesses and staffing levels. We're at a risk of potentially losing agricultural land with the development pressures that are here without supporting those farmers. And then we risk the contamination of water sources. So a lot of these things were identified as potential threats throughout focus groups and other things that we did during the master plan. So now kind of thinking through, after you've done that SWOT analysis, you create goals and things that you want to accomplish once you've kind of done that analysis. And those things need to be SMART goals, is kind of the acronym that they used, which I thought was very helpful. It's specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and time-bound. And we actually have some pretty good examples of those in our master plan. So conducting a tree inventory and tracking the development benchmarks along US 31 corridor, Hammond corridor, and the lakes area, I thought was a pretty good one. It's specific, it gives a geographical location, we're going to put protections on trees, it talks kind of about what you're going to do. Updating our Forest Lakes Overlay District ordinance and doing a 50-foot setback, it specifies how big of a setback they would like to see. So again, measurable, and we can know if we did it. Similar to like the cap we put on short-term rentals. We know that we have a certain number of short-term rentals, it's measurable. And then, or updating our zoning ordinance to require sidewalks. We'll know we've done that because there will be sidewalks. Our master plan does have a whole chapter on action and implementation, if you're curious, to look through kind of what it's identified as kind of our action plan, which then leads us into the Beach District visioning process that we're working on right now. So we've had a couple quarterly meetings with our stakeholders along the corridor. We've established an implementation team, which is really exciting. That implementation team has helped us select a consultant to help with the visioning process, Beckett and Rader, and so we're keeping that process moving, and it's really exciting. We also have hired a consultant to help with our marketing as well for along the corridor. So some really exciting things are kind of coming out of the visioning process. We've heard some of the goals along there are some signage along there, maybe some welcome signage, something that kind of shows that that's a place, and it has an identity. Some additional access to water, addressing kind of access management and driveways, safety concerns with that, preserving the trees and the natural features of that area, reducing vacancies and underutilized sites, creating some placemaking with some third places, potentially more parks areas and things like that along there, and then additional public transportation and multimodal access. We've also heard that, so kind of moving into the objectives, for kind of keeping through that lens, you would increase the number of pedestrian crossings, you would reduce traffic speeds and increase safety, you'd work on filling vacancies, you would make investments in the water quality protections and things like that. And then that would lead into policies of the township engaging with a consultant to do welcome signage and kind of some of the things that we've started to do. Creating, bringing on a consultant to help us with the visioning process. How will stormwater be addressed? How are we going to look at implementing green infrastructure along the corridor? Those types of things. And then that leads into kind of what we're doing right now. So Beckett and Rader has given us kind of a layout of how they're going to go through this process. It'll begin with a public survey. They're going to do some data harvesting for us through that public survey and get some feedback from the public. They're also going to conduct a design charrette. It should be about 3 days long, which is that process of kind of that iterative, quick, intensive work sessions. And then it'll be reviewed with the implementation team. They'll be advising along the way as we go through this process, but it'll go before them, then it'll come before you guys as the Planning Commission to review as well. And then once they get the feedback from everyone, they'll create a final report that'll then be presented to you guys. So that's kind of what's coming down the pipe over the next year or so as we work through this process. I guess it'll be this fall, because it's 2024. I'm still getting used to that as well. And then if you guys have any questions, I'm happy to answer any questions, or if you think of anything later, you guys have my contact info. Yes.
Can you explain to me, you mentioned Leah and some surveying they're going to be doing?
Yeah,
Are they
so
looking to
they'll be working in tandem with our consultants, Beckett and Rader, to do the analysis for implementing green infrastructure methodology and delineating kind of where we have wetlands, where we have sensitive areas, what we can do to help with
I
that.
can add to that just a little bit. They've done a lot of resiliency mapping around the state to help inform
Resiliency, okay.
some plans, and so they will be looking at like heat island effect, they'll be mapping tree canopy, impervious surface, stormwater, some of that stuff.
Okay.
So part of the coastal management grant that we have, where our grant is unique, generally they're funding like projects that are like very narrowly resiliency focused. This is a very, kind of a project where we're looking very holistically at the corridor from economic development standpoint, placemaking, transportation. So we definitely will be working with them closely to make sure we hit all the resiliency pieces. And the other thing I wanted to mention is that Beckett and Rader is actually planning to come to the next meeting to talk about this visioning process with the Planning Commission. And so if you guys have any guidance, ideas, thoughts, stuff like that, highly would recommend you bringing that up to Beckett and Rader to kind of help with kicking off the visioning effort. And last thing I wanted to just mention is that we are, with the Beach District quarterly meetings, we just sent an invite for the next one in February, but I will forward that on to the Planning Commission, because we'd love to have you guys attend any of those that you're available and interested, so,
Yeah.
yeah.
Sounds good. Thank you for that. Super helpful.
Thank you.
Excited for more pretty pictures of the corridor.
I won't be drawing them, I'm not that good.
Okay, okay.
But we have some good consultants.
Thank you. All right, last up, site plan review documentation. Claire, looks like we've had a number of projects the last few
Yeah, so
years.
this is the last 4 years. Wow, we've had 48 site plans, so it's about 12 a year. And unfortunately, Paul's not here because he requested this, but hopefully he is on vacation reviewing.
He's checking this out. We know that.
His packet's still in his box.
Disappointed.
You can pull it down.
So I just counted a few stats. We've had 735 residential units that have been approved in the last 4 years. 216 of those are complete, so that's Bayview. The remaining are mostly under construction. Some, like Brigantine, has not moved forward, but the majority of those have land use permits, are under construction. I will mention that not all of them are multifamily, so we kind of, the perception is that it's all multifamily, but we've got Victoria Farms, Holiday Forest, and Lavender Hills are all site condo, single-family, that have, been approved over the last couple of years. We have 6 new commercial buildings, numerous other expansions, changes of use, but did want to note that we've got 6 new buildings. We've approved 506 new hotel rooms in the last 4 years. 2 of the hotels have not yet broken ground, but we have, in addition to those 506 units, another potentially 200 that, we had come before us for sketch plan review. We've got 2 new buildings in the industrial park, and then we've had 3 expansions. And then, this is just a notable, when I first started, there were so many pole barns that were coming in for special land use permit. Those have kind of been reduced, and with our new zoning ordinance, we are hopefully very greatly reducing those, because now it's going to be tied to the size of the parcel, not tied to the size of the principal dwelling. So we're hoping that the way that we've redrafted the ordinance, there won't be as many special land use permits for pole barns, but we've had 5 of those, and I think the majority were in the first and second year. So, anyway, happy to answer any questions on that, but that was the summary for Paul.
Good to
I
know.
have a question. We were talking about on the way here. What's the status of the hotel that's right next to,
Hopscotch.
across from Alexandria Inn, the one that's been going on that seems going very slow?
Yeah, so they've got the first building in, framed. The other hotel is not yet, from what I can tell, broken ground. I have emailed them. I've not gotten email response from them. But the Hopscotch owner reached out to me yesterday and has been working with the developer to kind of just move the driveway entrance on his property, the connection. So it sounds, as far as I know, they're moving forward, but yeah, it is slow.
Curious.
Interesting to note, all the hotel rooms coming in. It's wild. It's wild. Well, thank you. Helpful. I'm sure we'll talk about it next month when Paul's here.
Yeah, you might want to put this in the packet for next one.
Staple it right up front.
For Paul.
Or Paul. All right, last chance for public comment, round 2. Anything left to talk about? Feeling good? Okay. And anything else we need for future agenda items? Top of everybody's mind?
I think next agenda might be light, because we were going to have a public hearing for Timber Ridge, and I'm not sure they're going to be ready yet, so stay tuned on that one.
Good to know. That'd be the next upcoming meeting of March 5th.
Would you want to cancel it if there was nothing else?
What were you saying else, that Beckett and Rader wanted to come to
We
it,
did
though?
want to provide just an update on the beach district, so we could have just that as the agenda item.
Can we pull the work session up into the regular meeting?
We could do that.
That would be a good way to do it.
Be a great idea. Cut down on the extra.
Supportive of that?
Yes.
Okay.
I like that.
Yep, we can do that, as long as the timing works out just from Giffords Webster to get us the full draft. But yeah, I will definitely take a look at doing that, and then we can still have Beck and Rader come. So,
Sure.
okay, sounds
Okay.
good.
With that, I believe we're adjourned at